Next speaker is Nikkole SALTER from the United States. She's a woman of many talents, actress, writer, educator, and advocate. And I was listening to her work during an online conference in Zimbabwe during the Mitambo Festival. I was nicely astonished by her strong dedication for theater, by her care she expresses for other artists, for the young, and for those who are experimenting with new ways of approaching an audience in a digital form. Definitely a fresh voice for the essence of the art. Here is what she wants to tell you. Here she tells you. Nikkole.
Hello, all. Thank you, Tobias. I didn't know you felt that way. I'm glad you liked it. I'm very glad that I've met you. I'd like to thank first all who have come before, who make this moment possible for all of us. I'd like to give what we call in my community a shout out. That is to acknowledge and extend gratitude to my colleagues and friends here today, representing the Laboratory for Global Performance in Politics and the Theater Communications Group, the National Service Organization for Not-for-Profit Resident Theater Ecology in the USA, of which I am the chairperson of the board. I'd like to thank ITI for inviting me to attend this monumental convening and for giving me the opportunity to be in communication with my comrades far and wide at this time of significant change. And I'd like to preemptively thank you for your time, for the currency you actually can't replace, and for the attention and consideration you give to the ideas that I present. I'm honored by your willingness to do so, and I sincerely hope that you find what I say to be worth the cost of admission. Giving this talk was not a charge that I took lightly. It's not often that any one of us gets to expose the ideas turning over in our heads to people outside of our regular spheres of influence. I struggled with this speech. I mean, you all are from places on the globe that I have only dreamed of going, and you all are clearly brilliant. And I want it to be impressive. I want it to be galvanizing. I want it to be beneficial and nourishing. I want it to be insightful. And as I allowed those desires to grind my writing process into paralysis, I realized I was not using my superpower. Like you and the rest of humanity, before rhetoric was codified, before spoken and written language, we told stories. So instead of a rousing speech, I decided to tell you a story. Where do I start? I thought. Perhaps I'll start at the beginning, I said. I'll start with the creation of the world, the creation of humanity, of family, the story of the creation of community and tribe and society and nationhood, a story that racks focus from the whole to the parts and back to the whole again. A story that zooms in and out like a sound wave, or shoots out and never ending like a beam of light. A story of departure and return, of collaboration and cooperation, even if there's no consensus. A story of independence and interdependence, of connection and expansion, of balance and harmony. A story of maturity and conscious evolution. But what's the conflict? Everybody knows a story must have conflict. For conflict in our world, up until this point of human evolution, is the preferred catalyst for change. Friction, opposition, force. These things create movement. Movement allows for change, and all stories are rituals in that way. They're about the transformation. They all chronicle how and why change occurs. But need change be rife with conflict? Problems, agitation, pressure? Need transformation be a thing initiated by separation, disharmony, opposition? Need our growth and development be forced? Or can our story be about a change that we choose, a change that we breathe into and participate in, a change that we transition into willingly, peacefully, a change that is smooth and joyous and hell, even celebratory? Maybe that should be the story I tell, I said. Humanity's growing up story. But it's hard to tell a story that you're sitting in the middle of. Can one really have enough perspective to pinpoint its beginning? Dare I assert myself as the predictor of the end? Dare I decide before it's over what all of these events will mean? Will I have the audacity or the courage to take the reins and direct the narrative in process without the benefit of a bird's eye view? Now, that's dangerous. Ultimately, all across the world, that is what is happening. This fight for the reins. That is what factions are maiming and killing over. Yes, there is the bloody fight for resources and control, but even that bloody fight is germinated by the narrative. Therein is the root of the conflict. So why are we fighting over stories? American culture would certainly have us believe that they're just stories, right? Diversion, entertainment, child's play, vehicles for the garnering of audience attention and the selling of products and turning a profit. But story is no small thing. It is the narrative that makes us human, not just mammal. It is the narrative that gives us our awareness of consciousness. It is the narrative that allows us to consciously influence our own evolution. It is the narrative that allows us to give meaning to our experiences. In fact, no one of us can experience life without a narrative any more than we can absorb oxygen without breathing. Narrative fuels everything we think and everything we do. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are to ourselves, about who we are to each other, about what the world is, what life is, and what our relationship is to both. This is the cause of our perspectives. This is the birthplace of our cultures. This is the cause of our alignment or misalignment with nature. This is where all the conflict lies. And who gets to tell the stories? Who gets to make people listen? Who gets to be included in them? This is the fight. That idea was recently reinforced in me by watching a random episode of a stream television show called The Crown. Some British man was being portrayed, and he was tickling others with the potential they had to overthrow the British Parliament. He was presenting research about how other coups had happened in the world as the basis of their consideration. And he said, and I paraphrase in the most horrible attempt at a British accent, successful coups require at least one of four things: the support of the majority populace, control of the economy, control of the military, or control of the media, the latter of which can be used to obtain all the others. Control of the media. The outlets, sure, but really control of the story people accept as real and true. That is the story people believe, and the story that people rely on, base their decisions on at the risk of loss and harm. That is the story people trust. That is the power of narrative. It can reflect what we trust and believe, but it can also influence what we trust and believe. And trust and belief, at least for those who are Christian, but perhaps universally so, are the ingredients needed to apply our will. They are what is needed to consciously manifest anything from your imagination. Trust and belief are prerequisites for our capacity to create. So, this is a fight over what should be believed and trusted. This is a fight for who gets to manifest what they trust and believe and who does not. This is a fight for who gets to influence what we make and how we make it. This is a fight for our understanding and acceptance of what is real and what is not. This is the conflict. This is the fight. And here we are, the storytellers. Not merely people who tell stories. For all people conscious and living, unless they are in the practice of perpetual presence, are telling stories. But we, whose profession it is to craft narrative on behalf of humanity, narrative that reflects and influences, the stories that determine our collective experience of ourselves, each other, the world, and life itself, that determine ultimately what we will do, how we will do it, and how we will allow ourselves to feel about it when it's done. We, the stewards of the human technology that is the required software for the body's hardware. What is our role in this conflict that has been created? And what will our role be in the creation of what is yet to come? This is the moment, the precipice, the potential pivot point we always find ourselves at as professional storytellers. Now, up until this moment, we've told stories of victory and survival of the fittest, of our own righteousness and superiority, moral, intellectual, physiological, etc. Stories of our divine lineage, our royal heritage, and our entitlement. Accounts of our intrepid pioneering spirit, of our victimization and overcoming and revolution. Stories of our benevolent dominion and domination, of good and evil morality tales. Stories of our saving the world, fish out of water, rags to riches, zero-sum, hero's journey, happily ever after chronicles. That is what we've reflected. And that is what we have influenced the creation of. For that is what we trust and believe. But are those the stories we want to keep telling? Is how we want to continue to reflect and influence our collective experience of life the way that I've just outlined? Are those stories even true? And by true, I mean in alignment with our current understanding of nature? Are those stories helping us create the meaning of life that is true? Are those stories helping us create societies and economies and governments and media outlets that are honest and trustworthy? Are we telling stories of truth? Looking at the planet, I see a lot of suffering. And suffering is not the same as pain. Pain is a requirement of life. Pain is a tool that awakens you to misalignment. Pain helps you know something is changing and to be careful, for inherent in change is vulnerability and the potential for danger and destruction. Pain is temporary, but suffering is not pain. Suffering is prolonged and unnecessary. Suffering is remaining out of alignment with that which is true, despite opportunities to realign. Now, here we are, having a global experience of suffering. And I can't help but thinking that we storytellers are complicit. For we, to some extent, must be telling stories that get people to trust and believe that which is not true, stories that are lies. And lies always cause suffering. These stories are more than just stories. And we must be more than indiscriminate storytellers. We must be, to the degree to which we are capable, bringers of truth. We must do whatever we can to calibrate ourselves with the truth of nature and allow that to be the foundation of our work. We must reflect the truth. We must influence truth-telling. For if that is not the basis of our offering to the world, we are mere peddlers of suffering. And in the breakdown of the infrastructure and delivery systems we've inherited to render our theatrical services. We must find new ways to be storytellers of the theater. We must find ways to redefine theater. For our base service, the story creation and telling are services that are of incredible usefulness to humanity. They can no longer be for those who can buy theater tickets or those who can get to the theater. Everyone on the planet has the right to be reflected in the global narrative. Everyone on the planet has the right to influence our conscious collective evolution. Therefore, everyone on the planet has the right to be a part of the story making and represented in the storytelling. And it is we who will make sure that everyone has access to exercise those rights. Our stories have to go from the I, the singular protagonist, to the we. For that shift in focus and priority from the I to the we is a sign of human maturity, is it not? How will we include and honor the specificity of everyone? For including and honoring everyone is a part of why there are professional storytellers at all. Every human being is telling themselves a story of which they are the center. We provide stories for the whole. So in the rubble of 2020, in the portal opening of possibility that is the bitter silver lining of the storm clouds 2020 has cast over our lives, in the conflict nature has imposed upon us with COVID-19, forcing us to change and to acknowledge the fallacy of our borders. Will we storytellers emerge from this moment the same? We, the professional programmers of our collective experience, we, the stewards of the global narrative, we, the storytellers, we, the theater professionals, how will we consciously choose to participate in our own evolution? That is the dramatic question of the story I want to tell. Am I bold enough, audacious enough, courageous enough to answer that question? To take the reins of this story? Am I clever enough, evolved enough, wise enough, strong enough? Are any of us? Are all of us? I don't know. So I leave you with a cliffhanger. And I hand us all the pens and paper to complete the story together. I hope I have influenced some of your thoughts about your storytelling power and its inextricable responsibility. I hope I have influenced some of your thoughts about the needed role you play in our world. And I can't wait to reflect what your imaginations conjure for our collective betterment, for the growth and maturity of the human race. Thank you.